Cebu. I love that. Love Yourself is an NGO that focuses on addressing the HIV or AIDS situation in the Philippines
I love that.
and is working with global partners to end
Love
HIV/AIDS
Yourself
by
is an NGO that
2030. A
focuses on
graduate of
addressing
the
the
computer
HIV or AIDS
science
situation
program
in the
of
Philippines
Philippines
and is working with global
continues to
partners to end
leverage
Love Yourself
technology, data, and analytics on top of his people and project management skills as part of his core expertise when working on projects. So I would like everyone to give a warm welcome to Sir Dennis. Welcome him to our page. Hi, Sir Dennis.
Hi,
Hi.
Clea. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're honored to have you. Thank you. Now our other speaker is a very close friend. He is Peter Bacomo. He's been a volunteer counselor at Love Yourself since 2017. Currently, he's an HR practitioner in an IT company that specializes in employee relations, employee engagements, and business partnerships, where he develops company culture and branding. He's also managing the company's employee wellness and retention programs through executing corporate and social events. He serves as an escalation path on handling employee concerns by serving as a liaison and conducts regular employee counseling and discussion as part of the wellness program. So I would also like to invite, let's have a warm welcome to Mr. Peter Bacomo. Hi.
Hi, Clea. Thank you for
Hi.
having me.
Oh, we're honored for both of you. I noticed that the level of expertise the both of you are bringing, I am so honored and excited for the kind of discussion we're going to be having today. And for everyone who's listening, ramdam ko talaga. We're all gonna really be enriched by this session. So, oh no. So, I apologize. I paused for a bit. Now, one of the things that I think we can get our discussion going is what is occupational wellness? Now, the occupational wellness that we're talking about today comes from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Association's definition of the 8 dimensions of wellness. And one of them is occupational wellness that really talks about the kind of purposeful living and meaning that can be derived from the personal satisfaction and enrichment from one's work. Now, this is a short definition that was given by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Association. But I'd like to ask either Peter or Dennis, when you hear occupational wellness, what does that mean for you? Yes, anyone. Maybe Peter can start and then Sir
Sige,
Dennis.
I can start. Siguro ako na lang, no, Sir Dennis. All right, so when we say occupational wellness, some of the people are really not familiar with it, no, but it is something really relevant, especially at this moment, no. If when we heard the words occupational wellness, for me, I would define it as something that attaining balance between leisure and work. So that is something very important right now. And then if when we say occupational wellness, things that comes to my mind is something like a sense of safety in the
Right.
workplace. So
Mm.
paano natin masasabi that it's somehow a sense of safety if the person is feeling secured with his job, there's a stability with the business, and they are feeling that they are really secured with their job, especially with this situation, no. The other thing that we can say that may occupational wellness tayo, or we are somehow safe from in our workplace, is we are away from our from harm. We are not feeling, we're not being harassed. There is no harassment happening in the office or at home. And then the last one is somehow I would say we are on a very good occupational wellness if we feel accepted in the workplace or at
Right.
the home. All right. So at the parang somehow the bottom line is there's a sense of satisfaction or employee wellness. So that's my definition of the occupational wellness.
Well,
Right.
you
Thank
know what,
you.
Peter? Yeah, that was a very good way to describe occupational wellness. No, and I really don't have anything to add to that. Perhaps na lang siguro what I can add na lang aside from the mentions that has been mentioned related to occupational wellness. Kasi when you talk about the Philippine Psychological Association, there's actually they recommend the 10S when it comes to overall mental health, no, ng tao, for example, especially how it relates to work and even to personal at the personal level. um, so just to go through that and without having to go through each one of this, they call it the 10S. It's all about self-awareness, understanding that you need help. For example, scheduling is the next S is about scheduling, which talks about making sure that you have a set routine, because as having a set routine allows you to really have some regularity and allows you as well to have a better grasp of what you need to do. Siesta is also a very important factor that has been identified by the Philippine Psychological Association. Taking rest, it's actually very true that you are encouraged to take some rest, bio break, or even like a power nap, for example. Speaking, the next S is about speaking, finding someone that you can talk to or someone that you can relate to at work. And this is very difficult, especially during this pandemic, because most of us are just like working at home by ourselves and we don't have any physical contact. So, how do you establish that capacity or the ability to be able to reach out to someone? And companies should have that framework as well to allow their employees to be able to reach out to anyone if in case they need someone to talk to, because speak is one of the 10S. And then sounds is about listening to music. It has been proven that listening to beautiful music, and I'm pretty sure that you have your own Spotify playlist when you're working. That's very
Right.
important. Sensation, the other one is sensation. Siyempre, pamasahe. Like, ako personally, yun yung talagang struggle ko. Kasi every Sunday, yung pang stress release, parang pang stress release
Reliever.
ko, reliever ko is to actually get a massage every Sunday, ha. Yung totoong masahe, hindi po yung ano ha, FMA ha. O yung
Oh,
yung
yes.
masahe lang talaga. Pusa ko, ito, isang stress releaser din ito. Ayan, pusa ko yan. Of course, the sensation. And then, stretching is also another one, like, exercise. And again, in this environment where we are contained in one location, how do you do physical exercise? How can exercise, for example, help you release stress, for example? Socials, it's also another one. Like, we don't live in an island, for example, and physically
Yeah.
smiling, or the fact that when you smile triggers a lot of chemicals in our brain that allows us to say that
Right.
diba. And then sports or activity, and then stress debriefing. If you are going through a very stressful environment, how do you work, no? And I'm pretty sure, Peter, if you're employee relations, like in some of the companies that I do consulting for, they have what they refer to as, like, coaches, no, like, parang talagang people that they can reach out to if they need to talk to, for stress debriefing. And last but not the least, and this is not for everyone, it's about spirituality. Like, are you grounded in certain beliefs or certain concepts that allow you to be more parang, sabi nga nila, if you're facing a lot of stress, at the end of the day, meron ka matatawagan na Panginoon, 'di ba? That's for me, and that's not for everyone. Pero yun po yung in addition to the dimensions of occupational wellness, I think I just gave you a brief background as to what is the Philippine Psychological Association framework, the complete 10S framework po. So, very good, Peter. So, dinagdagan ko na lang po. Yun po yung Clay.
Oh, thank you, Sir Dennis and Peter. It sounds like occupational wellness has to do with having a sense of balance
Mm.
between your work and the demands of work, and finding the ways that you can nourish yourself and replenish given the depletion that comes from your occupation or your career. And I think Sir Dennis talked about the 10S. There were 10S like sensation, sounds. He talked about maybe getting exercise, right? And talking, having some form of release. That's a way to balance the demands of work, so that we are finding a sense of we're not overstressing ourselves or depleting ourselves too much, right?
Mm.
Is that the both of you seem to be saying? And you also mentioned, Peter, about safety at work, safety that you are secured in your job, and also a sense of people in your company, the relationships that you have, right? So I
Correct.
think it's a very good broad way of looking at occupational wellness as feeling a sense of balance, safety both in your job and your position, and also of safety with the people that you work with. Now,
Mm.
I think this is a good way, and Sir Dennis talked about speaking. When you talk about speaking, I'm wondering who does the listening when that's at work.
Okay. So, yung recommended kasi, for example, from an employee engagement, no, this I can share with you that most employees stay with the company, for example, Clay, when they have a best friend at work. That's actually been proven. That's one of the Gallup questions that actually being asked. No, do you have a best friend at work that you actually talk to? So, which is interesting because when you say speak, it doesn't have to be a counselor. It is someone that you relate to at a mental, spiritual, or emotional level, and someone that you can just basically be yourself, di ba? So you talk to this person, kausapin mo lang siya. It's the physical contact essentially that triggers that sense of belonging in that organization. So be careful kasi pag mga tao, if you find yourself na wala kang kausap, ito yung sinasabi namin trigger points. Ito yung mga red flag na pag yung tao na to wala siyang kaibigan sa trabaho. These are
Yeah.
possible red flag na meron siyang pinagdadaanan or possible na aalis siya sa organization kasi hindi siya naka-find ng connection within the organization. So sometimes sinasabi kasi natin, dapat kailangan you should be aligned with the mission vision of the company, etc. etc. Big words yan eh. Sobrang laki-laki ng mission vision na yan. In reality, you are really trying to find your relationships, and your relationship can be your coworker. And ngayon nga, di ba, kay Peter, di ba, parang iba ngayon yung situation kasi you're working at home. How do you connect to your friends, 'di ba? So ano yung mga para-paraan natin? How can you connect to one another? I can share with you some of the best practices, if you're interested. But that's part of speaking. It doesn't have to be a counselor. It can be just a process basically of connecting to someone at work.
Hmm. So it's someone that you trust, someone that you can
Yes.
relate to, someone that you can share whatever you're going through with.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's a big factor in the employee, I guess, longevity at work.
Yes, that's employee. More specifically, that's one of the measures that we look at for employee engagement. How do we measure employee engagement basically? So that's the Gallup framework that we have. So that's one of the questions that they have. Do you have a best friend at work? Yeah,
Right.
or do you have someone at work that you can talk to? Mm.
So that's an aspect of the work relationship that's quite crucial in monitoring the wellness of an individual in the office at work.
Yes, tama po. And we find out that the people that say that they don't have people that they talk to, they are red flags, and generally they move out of the organization within the year. Umaalis sila. Kasi alam naman natin na parang they haven't established that uh, emotional connection to anyone in the organization. So that's actually a very, very legitimate way to predict a person's ability to stay in the organization. So
Right.
interesting siya na ano.
Yeah, and it makes me think about how we're all social creatures, and if our social spheres, even at work, do not harmonize or are not accepting of who we are, we don't feel like we belong. It's easy for us to disengage and to leave. So it can become a red flag.
Yes, and I think I'm gonna ask Peter no kung kasi I've delivered talks about inclusion and diversity for organizations, for example, and it has been proven that companies or organizations that include policies related to inclusion and diversity have actually shown 30 to 40% better production or productivity for employees, and at the same time even profit is actually also impacted by inclusion and diversity programs. And some people say, huh, anong violation nun? You don't realize that inclusion and diversity allow people to engage with one another, and they bring a different perspective. When you are being inclusive, and when you have a diverse employee background, for example, they give a different perspective, no? So, Peter, maybe from your end, ano po ba yung
Right.
nakikita mo na meron po ba kayong mga diversity inclusion ng mga program, mga ganun po, as part of occupational wellness?
That is correct, no, Sir Dennis. So, like you mentioned, yung diversity natin, it's actually somehow, parang it helps the employee boost their morale. And at the same time, they feel like very satisfied with the company kasi it's, if they see that it's the culture of the company, they're very accepting, they're very inclusive regardless of our sozi, our religion, and our abilities and whatnot. And that is somehow parang it helps to boost the employees satisfaction with their job, and that is true, no, there is definitely a big impact when it comes to productivity din ng isang employee if they feel that, you know, these things are present in the culture of their companies. So I would also like to add, no, when it comes to speaking and of course building relationship with your colleague, no, it's that, so say for example there's no available colleagues na talagang ka-team mo or somehow na parang you get to see on a daily basis, no, you can actually go ahead and reach out to your manager or your immediate superior so that if there is a certain concern, then you can go ahead and direct it to him, and then doon mo makikita if well guided ka with the help of your manager, kasi that is, you know, part then usually ng isang company culture if we have good managers.
Right.
That's it for me.
Yeah, but it makes me think about that turning towards the manager or your boss must mean that the employee employer relationship is something of trust, based on trust. That you find
I
that seeking help from
mm,
them is something that you can resort to.
okay.
Correct.
And very interesting that you brought that up. I want to relate this to the current pandemic situation,
Yes.
and just last Saturday, I was invited by the Philippine Association of Secretaries and Admin Officers, together with PMAP, to talk about developing work from home policies. No? And that's one symptom, one of the symptoms basically that organizations face when they have this pandemic is essentially uh, that urge to micromanage. So, managers would want to be like in constant touch with people, talking to
Yeah.
the staff that they have. It actually creates a very stressful environment for the employee. Sabi ko nga doon, sabi ko, attending meetings or Zoom meetings is not a sign of productivity. Actually, it is not a sign of efficiency. In fact, it is a sign of it's a waste in terms of Lean or Six Sigma na mga discussion. It's a waste actually of people's time. And then the other component that Peter mentioned, because trust is very very important in this current situation. They have this feeling kasi of the loss of general trust, that their managers don't trust them, that they are doing their job, diba? So that's part of the discussion that I shared with them, was to share with the group that when you develop your policies from work from home, what you do is that you move away from effort to results based na output, no? So yung tao dapat mini-measure natin kung ano yung output niya instead of the effort that they provide. And you don't have to be in constant touch with them. Like for example, some people or some attendees mentioned that nakaka-stress na daw kasi sa isang araw they have to attend 4 or 5 meetings na parang sana yung panahon nila na magtrabaho kasi meeting na lang sila ng meeting, di ba? So parang nakakatawa. Pero anong sense nung trabaho mo na puro ka na lang meeting, di ba?
Yeah.
So yun yung magandang discussion point. And to your point, Peter, yun yung isa sa mga things that we need to address during this pandemic, that how do you establish trust and make sure that you as a manager, or if you're a manager, how do you convey to your employee or to your subordinate that you trust them to be able to do their work. And the recommended action for that is to set a formal one-on-one time with your employee instead of having to, like, say, for example, talk to them every single day. And sometimes communication norms, Kay, is also very important. Kasi when you say communication norms, some companies say that, pag pinadalan ka ng email, kailangan sagutin mo siya within the hour. Sabi ko, no, that's stupid. Sabi ko, if it's sent via an email, it means that it can be responded to within one business day. Sabi ko, if
Right.
it's a chat, actually, yeah, di ba? And chat rooms is also a stressor. Alam mo ba yon? Na parang every time na nag-blink yung chat mo, tawang-tawa si Joy, oh, pag nag-blink yung chat mo, akala mo kailangan, ano ba yung update, ano man nangyayari, di ba? Tapos may mga ibang mga tanga ng mga
Yeah.
manager, magbibigay pa ng assignment doon sa chat na magsuscroll up, ano yung binigay sa akin assignment? Ang tanga, di ba? Sabi ko, so sinasabi ko na communication norms, sabi ko,
Yes.
you should be very clear about your communication norms. Chat is not the is should not be responded to immediately if a person is not there. Learn how to use tools like set away or working or doing something para clear sa mga tao that you're doing something. And then I said that in this situation we're working from home. The best way essentially is to set the tone or the expectation that if it is something important, pick up the phone or do a video call because that means that is something that needs to be addressed immediately. So, and then you follow it through with a documentation using an email, for example. Pero wag po tayo magpadala doon sa yung kailangan pag nag-chat, kailangan sumagot tayo doon. So, yun, stressor yun actually sa mga tao. Kasi parang feeling mo, tapos yung boss mo magpapadala ng email alas 12 ng gabi. Parang feeling
Yeah.
mo, yung iba, napaparaning na kailangan sagutin na kailangan sagutin ko to kasi yung boss ko gising pa alas 12 ng gabi. So isa rin yun sa mga issue ng work-life balance na kailangan natin i-address na dapat yung manager should also be trained as well to live the work-life balance as an example na sila mismo they don't reach out to their employees when they know that nagpapahinga na yung tao on the weekend, for example, para yung empleyado, they can also imbibe that na parang, hindi ko kailangan mag-respond pala pag ganitong sitwasyon, di ba? So, and unfortunately, people assume that this is already a skill that people know. But in reality, it is a skill that is actually trained and you learn that. Tinuturo to. Hindi to parang automatic alam ng tao na ito pala yung this is how you establish your communication norms. This is how you establish your output, di ba? I don't want to hijack the discussion because I'm very passionate about these things when it comes to employee and employer-employee relationship or manager-subordinate relationship. But I hope that I was able to convey some of the thoughts that I have there.
Of course, Sir Dennis, these were very valuable insights about boundaries, about looking,
Yeah,
because you're mentioning that managers are not necessarily trained to know how to handle work from home. This
yeah,
situation that we're all dealing with, this pandemic, is new for most of us. The situation where we're having to place ourselves within our homes and accomplish our tasks that are remotely done and given to the people, our employers. So the idea that this is something that people will know how to do right away is
right.
kind of it's a false assumption, and it doesn't apply to everyone. And what you're saying is managers and people who have employees that that they handle should respect and understand boundaries about where to communicate and what they can expect in terms of the speediness of the reply or the response of their employees. And that there are some channels like chat groups that are too stressful that when you delegate tasks to people on or give homeworks can be quite stressful for those receiving it. Right. So thank you. And then I think that brings us to the topic of balance that you mentioned earlier about work life. And also Peter mentioned that earlier about finding balance as a way to wellness at work. Now, before we move to balance fully, I'm wondering, Peter, is there any other insights or thoughts that you have about when it comes to what Sir Dennis just mentioned earlier, especially in the context of the work from home pandemic situation that most of us are dealing with?
Correct. All right, so thank you, Clea. No? And I would just like siguro to add something on what Sir Dennis have mentioned na hindi po talaga required na sumagot agad sa emails or chats unless if it's urgent, no, Sir Dennis. I hope you can agree with that.
Mm. So I think Peter, yun na nga yung sinasabi natin that you have to establish your communication norms as part
Correct.
of your process. That sending an email or a chat is not an urgent form of communication. It should not be responded to immediately. So if you need someone to respond or to act on an activity, set that expectation to use the phone call or video chat with your subordinate or your colleague, for example. Yun to yung sinasabi. And I think I saw this sa chat na you have to set your communication norms as part of your process. So yun yung tinuturo to, and some people unfortunately akala nila na sabi nga ni Clea na parang automatically alam na ng tao to. Hindi
Dapat
totoo
sumagot agad.
yan. Hindi alam ng tao how to set this, how to set these boundaries, how to set this communication norm, and how to set this framework. You might be wondering, bakit alam ko to? Kasi, just to give you a background, kasi like me, for example, in my previous role, as the head of managed services for the whole of Asia and Pacific, for example, I have 13 different clients. No, I have 7 different managers all over Singapore, Malaysia. I have Philippines. I have Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, and Singapore. Yeah. So I am used to the environment where I work with multinationals, or parang iba-iba kami ng mga lugar, no? So at the onset pa lang, alam na ng mga managers ko na when we communicate with one another, sabi ko na we have a regular meetings, we have a regular one-on-one. Sabi ko, I don't believe in the group chat, for example, but I do believe in one-on-one official meeting talaga. And then I also have my communication norm wherein at the start of the week, I review with my team what is the objective of the organization or our unit, where we're going, and where, for example, ano yung dapat tapusin natin for the week. And then at the end of the week, I have another official meeting with the team. Um, where we discuss naman the progress. For example, it allows the people to have a sense of regularity. Na parang alam nila yung parang in-expect nila pag Monday, mag-usap kami about ano yung targets natin for the week. Pag Friday, mag-usap naman kami kung ano yung accomplishments natin, and we celebrate accomplishments. And meron pa kami mga pakulo na, for example, since I have different teams, for example, I would order pizza and I would have it sent to different teams even in Singapore and Malaysia. Tapos nag-virtual pizza party kami. Tapos yun na nga,
Wow.
oo, para yun, 'di ba? Mga pakulo na parang kahit na online ka, nagko-costume day kami. So that kami naka-costume, so mukha kami mga tanga, pero tawa kami ng tawa. Pero at least, Fridays, it's like parang
Good.
'di ba? Parang party siya.
Virtual night out. Virtual night out.
Yeah, virtual night out. So
Virtual
mag-wine and
lang,
cheese,
right?
meron kami mga wine and cheese na mga pakulo na ganyan na, pag mga basta Friday, meron kami mga pakulo na gano'n. Pero we also discuss, and to discuss as well successes of the team. And the rest of the week naman, we make sure that we have one-on-ones with my direct reports. Tapos hindi ko sila palaging binabag na parang everyday kailangan kausapin ko sila, kasi that's how I establish trust, na parang sabi ko na I've trained you and I've equipped you well enough to be able to do the role that you're supposed to do. Pero siguro ang share ko lang, and it has been trained as well, tinuro din sa amin, that when we do one-on-one with our direct employees or direct reports, no, one of the critical questions that you should ask as a manager, and this is something that I can share with you, managers should be taught how to ask the question, what can I do to help you succeed this week?
What can I do to
Kasi,
help you succeed?
'di ba? Kasi because it's a very powerful statement na parang pag tinanong mo yung empleyado mo or yung direct report mo, what can I do to help you succeed this week? It tells them that I am here to help you.
Right.
I am here to support you. That whatever you need from me, if it is something within my domain, then I will make sure that I give it to you so that you're able to successfully do what you have to do. And for the rest of the week, hindi kita guguluhin. I'm not going to bother you. But we have our dashboards, which means that every single day I know the progress of each team. Alam ko yung mga stats nila. So hindi ko na kailangang kausapin sila na mag-read out pa sila ng mga data nila or yung mga stats nila kasi meron naman kami mga dashboard. Pero yung one-on-one, kailangan turuan natin yung managers just to ask that simple question. Kamusta ka? How are you? And I usually start by 5 minutes of the discussion. I just ask about kamusta ang family, kamusta ang wife mo, kamusta ang mga anak mo. Because that's also part of one of the recommendations sa Gallup na alam nyo ba that if a manager has this, we have this tool na parang sabi nila na learn something new about your employee every single week. So it's a journal. So what you do is that your direct report learn something new about your employee. Kasi sinasabi sa Gallup kasi that the more that you know your employee, the more that you establish a relationship.
Right.
So by the time that when I left the organization, these managers of mine have remained very good friends of mine up to this point, and they can still consider me basically as parang tatay pa rin siya. Parang, well, daddy looking na nga ako, pero they consider me essentially as a like as a father figure, so to say. Kasi it has gotten to a point where every single week I try to learn something new about a person. Kahit na anak
Right.
mo, ano yung mga
And
interest mo. Di ba? So go ahead.
no, but it sounds like that you are seeing them more than what they can provide for the company and seeing them as human beings that you're relating to.
Oo, tama.
And
Kasi,
that adds the trust. Hmm.
hmm, so,
Yes, sir, Dennis.
tama po, Clay. So, I think yun yung sinestablish ni Peter kanina na how do you establish trust in the organization. One, make sure that you enable and empower the people that you have to be able to do what they need to do without you micromanaging everything.
Right.
Second is you establish a more personal relationship by making sure that you know something new about your direct report every single week that adds on to that data bank that says na parang I know him deeper or I know her deeper, mas kilala ko siya because every week I invest in getting to know the person. And yung pag-uusap namin, hindi lang yung let's review your stats, ano yung results mo, etc. etc. Kasi nagiging robot na yung tao and people parang ayaw na nila makipag-usap sa iyo kung yung una mong bungad sa kanila ano na yung stats mo, di ba? Parang pangit yon. So kailangan simulan mo siya, kamustahin mo lang siya. First 5 minutes of the discussion, just say hi, how are you? Kamusta wife? Ano nangyayari sa iyo? And try to find something new about your direct report. Yan po yung advice ko lang.
Right. Right. Thank you, Sir Dennis. And what I'm hearing is that when we are able to trust if you're an employer or a manager and you're able to trust your employees with the task that you give them, that also gives them a sense of empowerment and the capacity to trust in, I guess it's a mutual thing. If you trust in them, they end up finding trust in you because of that trust given. I wonder, Peter, any other thoughts and insight that you would like to add?
Mhm. Thanks, Clea. So very important nga po yung nabanggit ni Sir Dennis, no, that we make sure that trust is observed within an employee to manager relationship.
Right.
Na-mention din ni Sir Dennis, no, which I totally agree that uh, ang hirap if you micromanage your direct reports kasi that somehow parang uh, lead them to overworking and then burnout, which somehow I would say na it defies na yung balance natin when it comes to work and leisure, between work and leisure.
Hmm.
Mm. Ay,
Right.
dead air
I
tayo.
apologize. I think my
No, sige lang, okay lang.
there's
Siguro, Clay, no, maybe I can give you certain insights, no.
Yeah, I apologize.
Okay. So I can give you additional insights now. There was a CNN study, and it was corroborated, and also because I do volunteer work now for PMAP, for the People Management Association of the Philippines. Even yung mga local surveys natin, what we are finding out that when we have this survey related to what causes the most stress for Filipinos, do you know that technically 23% of the respondents say that it's their boss or the supervisor that causes stress for them. On top of that, 15% of course is traffic or commuting as a stressor. But of course, right now, iba na siya. Kasi remember that this discussion that I'm sharing, or this stats that I'm sharing with you, is an old survey that we did. Traffic is not anymore what you call this, a stressor, no. And it also says that personal relationships is also a stressor even at work. They bring whatever their relationship at home, and that's approximately about 13% that say that personal relationships impact the way that they're able to do or occupational wellness. And one of the very interesting that we found was that 15% of the responders said that living paycheck to paycheck, or yung parang lack of budget, credit card, utility bills, halimbawa yung hashtag adulting, nila, diba? It's a major stressor for them. And I think for this pandemic, it is very relevant because DTI just recently announced that almost 40%, 40, not almost, 40% of small to medium enterprise have permanently closed. So parang yung additional stressors ngayon is yung parang uncertainty na parang meron pa ba akong trabaho tomorrow, meron pa ba akong baka mali-lay off na ako, di ba? So ito yung mga stressors natin.
Yeah. Which I think brings me to the topic of the challenges of dealing with the concept of occupational wellness amidst this pandemic. Because what I am noticing is the concept of occupational wellness, of employee-employer relationship, as Sir Dennis mentioned, many times it dealt with a world prior to this pandemic, where many of us would go to the office, would commute, would be in motor vehicles or trains to get to work. Now we are mostly having to work from home, or 40% of the workforce are out of jobs. So that idea about finding some sense of fulfillment in a career that seems to have slipped through their fingers because of the pandemic is a very difficult and challenging situation for many Filipinos out there. So what I'm wondering is, in terms of this pandemic and this situation, how do you make sense of finding occupational wellness, given where we all are at in terms of, I guess, the health crisis and the economic crisis that seems to be coming with it?
Sir
Right.
Peter, go
Right.
ahead.
So I can answer on that. No, for me, I would take on a very corporate way of attaining occupational wellness. No, so I would tackle on one of the challenges, which is overworking while working from home. That is why one of the reasons
Oh,
ng
that's
attrition
true.
of the employees, like I'm overworking, very comfortable ako sa bahay, pero I'm stressed out, and I feel like there's a lot of tasks to complete. So with that, something that on my mind, no, I have 3 points, no, for me to be able to attain occupational wellness in this situation, which is most of the employees are working from home.
Right.
So first one is, I think na-establish natin siya that we have to set boundaries. Like mentioned ni Sir Dennis kanina, no, we're in, if there's a group chat or if there's an email of your manager, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to answer it. You can go ahead and provide a turnaround time. Like, I can get back to you at this time. I'm currently taking a break. Maybe we can go ahead and talk about it after probably a day, or within the day siguro. We have to set boundaries wherein we have to set specific working hours. And then in that specific working hours, we need to get what has to be done and don't overwork. Like parang ay payak dahil I have a lot of time nasa bahay naman ako, maybe I can do this. I don't think that's somehow makaka-help sa atin to attain occupational balance or occupational wellness, no? Somehow, if there's work that, if you still have time and there's still work, kung kaya mo ipagpabukas, ipagpabukas mo na. And that is somehow, I would say, na setting boundaries.
Right.
So, for the second one, since we are on a work from home setup, no, mahirap mag-adjust to specific specifically nung nag-start tong pandemic, no, and then the corporate world is somehow na shocked on what are the things that they need to do next, paano natin i-implement yung business continuity plan, paano magko-continue yung operations. So nag-implement sila with working from home, and then it's a big adjustment for employees, especially those na hindi sanay sa ganitong sa industry na hindi sanay sa ganitong setup. So with that, parang second point for me is we still continue to start our day right, like continue what we used to do, but may konting adjustment lang, like the usual hours na gumigising tayo. That is something that we can do on a daily basis, diba? That we can set our alarm. We're waking up in the morning like 7 in the morning para pumunta sa work. We can still do that kahit we are in the comfort of our homes. We can still prepare our breakfast, and then we can change to something comfortable. Wag lang yung mga underwears natin, because of course we are working from home, no? So that's the first, we have to set boundaries. Second one is to start our day right. And then for me, the last one is revamp our commute. So for me, that is something very important since we are no longer traveling, like merong from south na nag-work sa north. So yung extra time natin that we have is something that we can redirect to a new routine. So say for example, yung 3 hours na travel ko usually going to work, maybe I can convert it into reading or completing a book, or maybe I can paint or continue my painting na hindi ko natapos. So that's something na I hope can help employees right now, just like me, kasi what I basically do in the morning, parang yung first week, no, ng work from home, na parang hala, it's 7 o'clock, so I have to prepare kasi at 8 a.m. I have a meeting, I have a call, so I have to bibilisan ko. And then usually naman isa sa mga naging problem then for the first week of the work from home, no, would be medyo over chill tayo or overlaxed. We're in mag-8 na, we're not ready yet. So there's two problem or challenge that I can see na overwork tayo or na over prepare or somehow na over chill tayo. So that's that will lead me dun sa last point, which is yung revamp natin on our commute, right? We redirect our commute time into something productive. So that's for me.
So it's finding setting boundaries about what kind of tasks you can achieve. It is about sticking to a routine that you can keep doing every day, so that you are in a way finding a sense of normalcy and repetition. And lastly, to redirect whatever time that you used to spend commuting or doing other things to get to work to perhaps tasks that can balance the stressors or the demands of your career, like painting, reading a book, or other things that you find meaningful. Right, thank you. Yes, Sir Dennis.
And maganda yung sinabi ni Peter, and I think he summarized it very clearly. And it is aligned naman talaga with the Philippine Psychological Association na mga recommendations, di ba? Kanina, for example, sinabi ko na parang setting schedule, that's one of the ways that you can maintain balance, no? Parang mental health, no? The ability to stick to a routine. Essentially, when you are working in a pandemic, sabi nga ni Peter, kailangan tinitrain yung mga tao natin na kung nagigising ka alas 7 ng umaga, magising ka pa rin ng alas 7 ng umaga. Yun na nga
Right.
lang, kung you are expected to be at work at 9 o'clock in the morning, for example, in between that, and then you can find something else to make sure that you find another outlet. For example, whether you want to stay like your daily devotional, for example, that keeps you going, or some people they would like to listen to music, or let's say would like to read a book, for example. And sticking to a routine or sticking to a boundary gives a sense of normalcy to people, especially during this time of pandemic. So mahirap siya na-expect natin sa mga tao. And ito, yung best friend ko who's based in Canada, in Toronto. Sabi nga niya, nagrereklamo na siya sa akin na pati weekend daw niya, nagtatrabaho na siya kasi parang nakikita niya yung computer nandiyan. So parang, sabi niya, sige, parang kailangan niya na lang. Total, nandiyan na rin yung laptop niya. So might as well, like, do. Sabi ko, sira ulo ka pala eh. Sabi ko, learn how to disconnect to connect to yourself. Diba, sabi ko, learn to disconnect to connect to yourself. I mean, that's something that I think everyone needs to understand. You need to learn how to disconnect to connect to yourself. Diba?
Right.
So, 'di ba? And that's something that people kasi especially with with a lot of our younger generation na parang kailangan nila they need to be always socially connected with one another, 'di ba? So, meron namang mga paraan that like for example, yung mga BL series ngayon sa YouTube, which is very interesting.
Yes.
I think they're showing talagang ganon. O, di ba? Yeah, o, di ba? Parang it gives them, parang it teaches us in a way na parang may paraan that you can still be in touch with your friends even though you are not there or you're not there physically with one another. Pero one of the key things talaga is like physical activity, because lethargy or parang walang physical activity is a thing that can cause a lot of people stress, and you don't know that na parang kala mo dahil nakahiga ka lang sa bed parang relax ka lang, actually nakaka-stress siya at one point, yung parang nakahiga ka lang buong araw, for example, di ba? So, kailangan, meron ka maghanap ka ng paraan how to do, whether you do your stretching, in limited space. For example, I have friends na ang ginagawa nila is that they walk up and down the whole condo 20 floors, for example, as part of their exercise, as part of their routine. Imagine, ginawa na nila as part of their routine na mag-exercise sila, na hindi naman sila nakakapag-gym, pero every day they have a schedule na maglalakad sila. Like ako personally, I'll share with you na I do 4 times a week. Maglalakad ako at around 6:30 or 7 in the morning around the village, because during the time wala pa akong nakikita ng mga tao sa daan, and it allows me as well to just disconnect, listen to my earphones, listen to music, just focus on just like walking, and then look at like okay, naka 5 kilometers na ako, and then at least I know that I've already logged essentially my quota for being physical, no, kasi physical wellness is also part of the overall wellness as well. So
Yeah.
magaganda yung mga points niya binigay ni Peter kanina, very
Yeah.
very relevant po yon.
Thank you. So, Sir Dennis, it's disconnect from work so that you can reconnect with yourself.
Yes po,
Right?
opo.
I love that. So that, and I'm seeing we have and so that we can flourish, right? Tama. Now, I know the sign language. And then, now I have a question from a friend. The question is, how do we deal with power tripping or bullying at work, especially now that we have work from home set up? That's interesting.
Okay.
How
Uh,
do we deal with that?
Sige. So, I'll address this from a corporate perspective, and I'll address this from controls within organizations that I've worked with. We have ethics hotlines, and like hotlines that are provided for organizations, especially for multinational, where you can submit a report if you are being bullied, no. And these hotlines or ethics hotlines, for example, are independent of any corporate structure. So iba sila, they don't align to operations, or they don't align to finance. Some organizations really have a separate ethics hotline where you can send an email, or you can send an anonymous phone call, and you can report that. If companies do not have, that's one of the things that you as an employee should really make sure that you know this, na dapat ano po ba yung escalation procedures within a company. Kasi kung hindi mo alam yon, then you don't have any way of um, how to raise your concerns, for example. And ang problema nito, some employees don't even know na meron pala silang ethics hotline. 'Di ba?
Yeah.
Nila alam na pwede palang magsumbong, hindi pala nila alam na yung kasi meron na kami mga situation in previous companies that I've worked with na, senior vice president, or even like senior managers that have been investigated independently and have been removed from position, particularly because of reports of abuse of power, for example. Di ba? And this is where cultural and gender sensitivity training also come in as well. Like, yung mga training nato na parang we need to be socially aware. Hindi naman yung parang palagi tayong galit na, we always need to be galit about all the issues at life. Pero kailangan we need to be aware of sensitivity training that needs to be done. And in fact, sa DOLE, they have a requirement for mental health training. So, for example, every year, companies are actually required to roll out a mental health awareness training for all employees. And some companies don't do that. And if they don't do that, actually, they can be held liable, or they can be held accountable for that. No, so some companies don't even know that they are required to do that on an annual basis, for example. So, yun yung mga paraan that how you deal with bullies. Ang sasabihin ko lang, learn first and understand ano yung framework ninyo sa company ninyo to report unethical behavior within the organization. Inform yourself. Kailangan, alam mo kung ano yung mga dapat mong pwedeng gawin. Di ba? Anong pwede mong gawin. Kasi kalaban natin, ignorance. Hindi mo pala alam na pwede pala magsumbong. Meron palang sumbungan. Di ba? So, I think, yun po yung masasabi ko diyan, Clay.
Thank you, Sir Dennis. Peter, any
Yep.
insight? Yes.
I would definitely agree, no, yung specifically the ethics hotline, dapat this is something that has been set to you by your human resources, no, from the day of your first day, from your first day, like during your orientation. And yung escalation path natin is something that on an HR perspective, no, that should be discussed to the employee, so that if there are, say for example, grievances, or there are specific concerns in relation to bullying or harassment, they know where to go to.
So these ethics board or ethics I
Hotline.
guess hotline are available for every company.
They
Yeah.
should have an ethics
Yeah.
hotline for every company.
So
Okay.
most companies have that. Most companies have that, and if a company doesn't have that, be very careful. Kasi parang it means that they don't consider ethics as a serious matter that needs to be addressed. May
Right.
question, paano po kung small company, for example? I think.
Yes.
Okay, so si Joy raised the question, paano kung small company, for example? Now, there are ways that you can address this, like in a harassment at work, for example, can be addressed to NLRC, or the National Labor Relations Committee. Don't go directly to DOLE, kasi sabihin ni DOLE, wag kang tangaday, syunga-syunga, doon ka muna sa NLRC. O, di ba? You can actually file complaints with NLRC. It's not just about illegal termination. For example, if you filed, let's say, a report or if you feel unsafe in an organization, or in an environment you feel unsafe because of certain behavior that's being, for example, sexual harassment. I'll use that as a classic example. Sexual harassment is a classic training that should be done for everyone, di ba? For all companies. And kung feeling nila na hindi sila, for example, uh, inalagaan ng company nila, they can actually raise this to NLRC. Pwede nilang i-raise to mga ito. So it's not just necessarily just labor-related grievances, no? Meron din ditong mga recourse, for example, on how to handle, for example, yung mga sexual harassment, etc. Kasi companies that don't have sexual harassment policies can also be held accountable and liable by DOLE for non-compliance as well. Alam niyo ba yan? Na companies actually are required to have, kahit na small company ka, o kahit na sabihin mo, maliit lang na company yan, no, meron pa rin yan. At pwede mo rin silang ipabarangay. Kung ayaw mo talaga pumunta ng NLRC, actually, you can file a complaint talaga. You know, pwede ka talaga mag-complain talaga.
Right. So what I'm hearing is, may paraan para mag-complain, and you can go to either the ethics board or you can go to NLRC. Right. Thank you.
Also, I'd like to add, no, Clea, that, say for example, going back to the question, if small company, wala pa silang na-established na ethics hotline, they have definitely an LRC. Pero if they wanted to somehow deal with it in a smaller circle muna, they can, going back to what we have discussed, which is if you've already established trust to your manager, then you can escalate it to your manager. If your manager can't actually handle that, then we can go ahead and raise that to human resources. So with that, human resources should maback upan dapat sila ng company code of conduct nila, that if there's a specific policy with harassment or bullying, then it should be provided to the specific employees, no, na this is the things that we have to do, ito yung proper escalation path natin, and if this has not been resolved to company level or manager to employee level, then we can go ahead and reach out nga doon tayo sa bigger circle na, which is NLRC. We can report it directly to them.
Right. So HR is the first recourse, or your manager, as long as the trust or rapport is already there.
Correct.
Now, we have another question from Harvey Stardew, which I think is very relevant for the situation we're all in. How can retirees or retrenched individuals find occupational wellness? That for me is, pati ako napapaisip ako sa question na yun, kasi ang dami, na-mention kanina ni Sir Dennis na 40% ng mga tao nawalan ng trabaho dahil sa pandemic na to. So how can they find wellness in their career if many of them are not having careers? Parang the careers they had, they were lost. Parang ganun.
Sige. Eto, Clay, no? Magandang question yan. Unang-una, kung may trabaho ka ngayon, first thing first, be thankful that you have a job. Pasalamat ka, may trabaho ka ngayon. O, di ba? So, yan pa yun. Second is this, and we teach them, no? Kasi, ito yung medyo mahirap na discussion kasi the concept kasi of you only live once, di ba? Parang YOLO. So, a lot of the younger generation, for example, had this notion that pag may pera ako, pwede ko siyang gastusin right away, etc. Wherein in fact, when we teach financial wellness or financial training or hi baby, financial training, yung baby ko, yung financial wellness, sinasabi natin na kahit na walang pandemic, dapat 40% of your salary should already be set aside essentially for a calamity fund. And build to a point where you are comfortable, that you have 6 months to 1 year that you don't have to work, and you can still essentially exist or live without having to work. So dapat, that's one objective, dapat for all of the people that are currently have jobs right now, set aside money to a point where you don't have to work for 6 months up to a year without having to worry about really having to find work. Now, for those naman that unfortunately have been displaced because of this, have been displaced because of this. You would be surprised that if you go online, there are a number, but I'll relate this in a bit to yung question earlier about finding your balance na hindi mo naman siya talagang passion. Pero there are ways kung hindi ka mapili, there are ways naman that you can find online jobs, for example, using becoming a virtual assistant. You can do part-time work, for example. Like virtual assistants can earn anywhere between $5 to $15 an hour working for for individuals in the US, or even for companies that really are into finding virtual assistants, no, even dito sa Philippines, for example. Marami po tayo mga companies that are currently really actively sourcing and looking for people who wants to be virtual assistants, for example. And you might be surprised yung skill that you have right now, kahit na pagsagot lang ng email, setting appointment, this is actually this is a skill that can be translated into a virtual skill that is being paid, pinabayaran siya. Hindi siya, it doesn't mean that it is your passion, play. It doesn't mean that it might be your passion, but like babalik ko dun sa unang statement natin na sabi nga ni Jackma, the objective this year is just to really survive, right?
Yes.
This year, whatever you do, the objective is not to grow or to ultimately accomplish so much in life at this point, but really just to make sure that you survive. Diba?
Right.
So kung hindi ka pihikan in terms of finding work, for example, there are ways that you can do this by going online and searching virtual assistant positions. Or pwede rin, kung magaling ka magluto o mag-online, benta ka ng mga pagkain dyan, masarap ka magluto, o di ba? Huwag lang benta laman, kasi parang ang pangit ng pakinggan, benta ng laman, di ba? Parang, basta, benta ng mga pagkain, di ba? Yun.
Ng laman. Right. Thank you, Sir Dennis. Peter, would you like to perhaps add or maybe answer that question as well?
Yep. So very unfortunate din no yung mga those who employees na na-redundant or na-retrench no. And there are like Facebook posts wherein may mga flight stewardess or flight steward na retrenched from their job. So they are currently doing like deliveries or they're doing online selling. And if we are going to ask how can we find occupational wellness to that, it's really hard to answer, but it's tama yung sinabi ni Sir Dennis, we're in our first instinct as of the moment in this situation is to survive.
Yes.
So if tama din yung sinabi ni Sir Dennis, if hindi naman tayo mapili, then that's something that we can do in the meantime. And then if everything reverts to normal, then maybe we can push through with something, or we can push with something that we really love to do, or we can go back to our work, no? And we'll never know kasi what will happen. And with that, siguro yung occupational wellness is something na somehow hindi naman natin masasabi agad na parang if it's occupational wellness, dapat may work ako for me to feel satisfied. It is somehow that kumbaga balance between leisure and what you love to do. Kasi for example, na-retrench ka sa work mo and apparently you're really good at cooking or apparently you're really good at designing things. Diba?
Right.
It's something na pwede nating ma-redirect yung attention natin, and then yung it's something that we can say for example maging cost siya ng finances natin. That's something na pwede natin silang ibenta or pwede nating pagkakitaan, and then through that siguro we can find like an occupational wellness wherein this is something that I really love to do pala. Maybe I can continue with this, and then if things went to normal or bumalik tayo dun sa same routine natin, maybe we can go back and at the same time doing what we're passionate about.
Yeah. What I'm hearing from the both of you is that we have to take stock of our own resources and our own skills and capacities, even during this time of pandemic. Because
Right.
those capacities, those interests can actually be ways for us to make a living, even if individuals have been retrenched or have lost their jobs or have entered retirement. That we are still good at something. If it's answering emails, organizing a schedule, cooking, selling
Planting.
online. What? Yes?
Planting, which is very
Planting, right. Right. So you can be like
Oo.
a plantito or a plantita and selling plants, or even whatever that you feel that you're good at or you're interested in, or that you have a lot of uh, practice doing. That can be a source of income for individuals who have lost or have been retrenched from their jobs.
Ah, Clay, ito bigyan ko kayo ng concrete example
Right.
that you can actually find you can earn without having to have for example puhunan kasi pag nagluluto ka may puhunan, di ba? Kailangan may puhunan ka. Do you
Correct.
know that there are people right now na naghahanap sila ng mga reseller. For example, ikaw, magpo-post ka lang sa wall mo, magbebenta ka ng mga isda or karne or whatever. Pero in reality, ang fulfillment nun is sent to another organization that actually fulfills the delivery. So, sa'yo, meron kang commission or cut, pero wala kang sarili mong palaisdaan, wala kang babuyan, or di ba? Wala kang kapa. Ay, ba't napunta tayo sa kapa? But yung ano, di ba, may mga ganun na pwede kang magbenta ng, for example, you can sell stuff online, pero ang actual delivery and the actual fulfillment of these services is sent to a supplier. So, hindi si supplier yung nagbebenta, pero sinasabi niya na ikaw, you can sell our stuff or you can sell yung mga available namin ng mga isda dyan or karne for example na ikaw mismo wala kang puhunan. Meron ka lang cut. So may mga ganong paraan, and if you are very very creative, marami po yan sa Facebook ngayon.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised na ang dami siyang mga ganyan. I'll give another classic example. Yung isa kong barkada na isa siyang fitness trainer. So nagsarado yung gym, di ba? So,
Yes.
ang ginawa naman niya is for example, pwede naman pala siya na mag-online coaching. So, yung mga clients niya before kinontak niya na parang sabi niya, I can still do online coaching. Sabi niya, are you still following through the ano? Tapos kahit na naka-camera, tinitingnan niya kung ano yung form. Kasi there are physical activities that don't require uh, heavy set dumbbells, for example. Ito yung mga bagong routine na ano siya na hindi na kailangan ng mga heavy equipment, no? So free form exercise, for example. So
Right.
this physical fitness mga gym instructors, they're able to find regularity in the sense that they're still able to pursue their passion by coaching people or their clients, for example. And some of them can earn a pretty hefty, like for example, 1,000, 1,500 for an hour worth
Yeah.
of just coaching a client, for example. And if you have 2 or 3 clients a day that na meron kang nakakausap, kahit sabihin mo tag 500 lang yon yung kada oras mo na yan, that's already
Yeah.
1,500 pesos, di ba?
Correct.
So that's a classic concrete example of how you can repurpose your skill and to be able to help other people accomplish their goal of being fit, physically fit. For example, meron
Yeah.
akong kakilala na sa repertory na ang ginawa naman niya kasi wala naman silang mga shows, for example, di nag-online teaching siya paano kumanta, o di ba, or how to sing, for example, or voice lessons, for example, o di ba, you're an artist, you're still pursuing your passion and you're teaching people kahit na boses pala kayong tinuturuan mo, pero at least kahit pa paano may effort. Tawang-tawa si Joy, boses palakat talaga. So, tawang-tawa si Joy. Kahit na boses
Partnered with
palakat, pero
Paul again.
'di ba? Oh, pero at least 'di ba, you're still essentially uh doing that. Kung corporate trainer ka, meron akong barkada na ang primary source of income niya is more of providing training, for example. So with doing online platform of using that and creating online training modules and deploying it in LinkedIn Learning, you can earn for people who subscribe. Even if kung YouTube channel ka, maraming paraan that you can translate your skill into something that can be done on an online platform. So maghanap lang ng paraan. Pero yun nga, mahirap sabihin ko nila na parang, oh, mabilis maghanap ng paraan. Kailangan po, we need to get out of the boundary. We need to break out, to break through, not break down. We need to break through that parang ceiling natin na hindi natin kaya. Kailangan natin una isipin sa sarili natin, really take stock na we need to do something about the situation and what can
Yeah.
I do that can be done. Yun lang po.
Right.
So yun
I
yung
have
mga
a
concrete examples.
Thank you, Sir Dennis. So my quote, let us try to break through, not break down. I love
Right.
that. But because it makes me think about how in these situations we have it's inviting all of us to be innovative and creative with how we
Right.
can apply our skills to earn a living, whether it's a skill that we are not using as a career, but we can translate into a career during this period, or we can translate what we already do on a normal basis pre-pandemic to something more online where people can access it. But it's reminding us we still have resources and that there are still ways about how to go about earning, I guess, having a career or having an occupation. There's another question that I find very interesting and also very poignant from Harvey Starju. Thank you, Harvey. You're a regular viewer, and we're so happy that you're here with us almost every week. Harvey's asking, how can fresh graduates navigate occupational wellness in the pandemic? All right, that's students who were about to graduate and supposedly are supposed to enter the workforce. How can they navigate this period?
Okay. With that, also Harvey, thank you for that very wonderful question.
Yeah.
I'll probably give you a statistic that might surprise everyone.
Mm.
Do you know that for millennials, and when you talk about millennials, dapat alam natin kung ano yung difference ng millennials. So millennials born between 1981 to 1996, almost 50% of them have already left jobs because of mental health or occupational health, occupational related stress. No, no, for the Gen Z or the Zennials, so for example, or those that are fresh graduates that are currently just joining jobs right now, what we find is that 75% of them um, leave their jobs. 75% have already left jobs because of mental health related concerns. No, kung ano ka, kung yung concern kasi natin doon, and what we find is very interesting is that yung younger generation, and this is not to generalize, and I don't want this to be a controversial statement. I just want to state a fact that one of the key things essentially that we find out is resilience. Parang paano natin tuturuan when it comes to resiliency. Kasi sanay kasi yung younger generation, everything is immediate na parang before pre-pandemic, ang daming trabaho. Lahat, kung gusto mo magtrabaho, kahit ayaw mo mag-call center, ang daming call center naghahanap ng trabaho, for example, di ba? Para ang dali-dali nun. Pero yung mas harder skill to learn is actually how to be resilient and how to survive a pandemic. And for me, that has survived a number of, let's just say, like, world and even country related na mga crisis, for example. I think that's one of the things that we carry na parang resiliency na kaya namin mag-survive in this situation kasi we've handled this before. And I think that's a very difficult question to answer na parang how do we teach our new graduates, for example, right now, how to be resilient, no?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, dapat yung mga as parents, no, as parents, whoever, kung may mga anak ka, the fact lang na parents right now keep their children occupied by giving them online, yung mga lahat may telepono na or smartphone, for example. The fact lang na you have to praise them every single time. Yung parang kailangan, you have to always reinforce the notion na magaling ka, you're always doing the best, etc. etc. kahit na hindi naman talaga totoo. So it builds a false sense essentially with the younger generation that it's not building resilience. It's building a false sense of confidence in them. So
Right.
kailangan balansehin din natin na, as parents, for example, kailangan turuan natin yung mga anak natin how to survive in this world. Kasi sa amin nga, sabi nga ng parents ko before sa amin na ah, habang nandito ka sa bahay, you follow our rules. Sabi niya, kung ayaw mo, maghanap ka ng trabaho, labas ka, and then you can do whatever you want. Diba? That taught me early on that if I want to do things my way, then I need to find a living, diba? And that taught me essentially how to be resilient. And I think that's one of the key critical things that needs to be done, especially for younger generation. That at home pa lang, turuan natin sila how to be resilient. Hindi siya
Right.
masasagot immediately po.
Yeah. The idea that how can we be more realistic with the feedback we give the children in the family, the young
Right?
ones, especially the Gen Z or the ones who are still in grade school or something. How can we be more realistic so that they can be realistic with their own skills and not have a false sense of I guess it's a false sense of grandeur or
Right.
of greatness. And that my idea is if you live in a bubble and your belief of yourself is a bubble, that will be easily burst when you enter the real world.
Uh,
Exactly. By
Yeah.
situations when you find out you're not as good as you were made to believe you are. So realistic, grounded feedback is something that can help build resilience. And also facing reality that you mentioned if you live in a house, you go by the rules of the family. So it's an idea that understand the situation in a more real sense, and you're not. I guess that means you could be more grounded. Peter, would perhaps to add just anything about, I guess, help for fresh grads dealing with the pandemic?
I'm very happy no that Sir Dennis mentioned the building of resilience inside the comfort of your homes, which is doon naman kasi talaga nag-start, no. And with that, if we are going to literally answer this question, maybe we can build in our skills. Say for example, we're fresh grad, and then I feel that I'm not ready yet for the bigger world. Maybe this is an opportunity for me to increase or develop my skills for the things that I'm really good at. And then that's the time, say for example, everything went back to normal, I can reapply I can apply for something that I love. Like if this is the great job for me, then I can apply to it. And
Yeah.
if you're really into being in a job right now, there are companies wherein they are hiring fresh grads para ma-train sila. And then if they are ready for say for example skills wise, they're ready na, and then they can be provided into they can be pushed with the operations na or the production. So I know there are companies that are hiring fresh grads to be trained. There are official employees, but they are still under training since they are fresh grad. And then if this requires a high skilled employee, kapag nandun na sila sa level of being skilled, that's the time that they can be provided o ma-push doon sa productions na.
Mm.
So there's
Ah,
still options for fresh grad in terms of being trained.
Ang
Sipag lang.
dami po. Oh, and Clay, just to add to that, no, be on the lookout for, especially for business process outsourcing organizations that are into study and understand kung ano yung lines of business that they have. Because ang daming mga lines, ang daming mga uh, business process outsourcing or IT outsourcing, for example, that are into healthcare and insurance, that they are actively hiring a lot of people. Siyempre,
Yeah.
yung mga companies that are into leisure, into travel, nagda-downscale sila. But on the other end of the spectrum, yung mga companies naman that provide, for example, services for insurance, provide services for healthcare, they are actively hiring up to this point, and they will allow you to train at the
So
comfort of your home. They'll give you all of the equipment that you need.
Correct.
nice.
Ang
So I
dami
mean,
pa nila. Hmm.
yeah, the that you can canvas and look for companies that are actively hiring. And given the situation of the pandemic, healthcare providers and insurance are on a rise. And
Opo, oo.
leisure, travel, I don't know, maybe even restaurants, all of those are sort of downhill or having to quiet down. So look for where the opportunity is.
Right. And I think that's the correct term na hanapin mo yung saan yung opportunity. Research mo yung company kung yung company na yan provides a line of business that is related to healthcare, related to insurance claims, for example, because these are the companies that are actively ramping. And of course, I don't want to promote a particular company here kasi meron ako mga alam na mga companies that are actively at this point talagang sobra silang mag-hire very, very, very aggressively pa rin sila at this point. Even for fresh graduates, sabi nga ni Peter, and tinitrain sila and they are equipped to be able to do the job even at home. And even yung mga necessary support, like for example, providing internet connectivity at home at the expense or corporate expense of the company to make sure that these new hires are equipped to be able to do the role or their job at home pa rin siya. So, marami pong paraan po.
Yeah, I think before we wrap up, I guess I'll just summarize the entire conversation we've had for the past hour and around 20 minutes. We've talked a lot about what occupational wellness is, and for both of you, it's about finding balance between your work and your personal life, about creating boundaries even though we're at the work home setting, work from home, and also having to understand that trusting both your company and the people you work with is essential
Right.
in finding wellness at work. Also, when we talk about work relationships, you both mentioned that employers and employees should have that mutual trust, and micromanaging, as Sir Dennis mentioned, is something that will not be helpful and it's even stress inducing given the work from home situation. And that if you are dealing with bullying or power tripping, there's always the ethics hotline that you can go to in your company, and the NLHS
LRC.
Mercy.
and NLRC. There you go, which is a government organization, right? That
Mm.
can help. And um, you mentioned that in terms of personal growth, accomplishment, the idea for the year of 2020, especially during the pandemic, it's not for expansion. It's not for living your best life. It's about survival.
Right.
Yeah, and that's very important for all of us to remember that we're not here having goals, looking at social media and all these travel goals about living your best life, YOLO. It's about day to day because this pandemic, we don't even know when it's going to end or how it's going to unfold. So that's the one. And the hurdles and challenges with working with a pandemic, it's either to create boundaries with our work, to allocate our time that used to go to commuting to perhaps things that will help nourish us, and also to if you're a new grad or you've been retrenched or you've been you're a retiree, finding opportunity for yourself to earn a living using inherent skills that you already have that you can either translate to an online platform or other skills you haven't been using in your career and maybe earning from that also online. And also talking about where the opportunity is in terms of the industry of the world is usually in healthcare and insurance, and maybe looking to see if you want or would like to pursue work there, especially for new grads. So it's a very broad topic, but from what I'm hearing is that there's still hope. There are still resources for all of us, despite this seeming sense of enclosure na paliit ang ang mundo natin kasi nasa bahay lang tayo. May paraan pa rin at may hope pa rin despite this pandemic. And don't lose it. Yung don't break down, try to break through.
True.
And I like what Sir Dennis mentioned. Unplug so that you can reconnect with yourself.
So
Very important.
disconnect to connect.
Yeah, disconnect to connect to within. So before we, I guess, end this episode, I would like to ask Peter and Dennis, are there any like final remarks and like parting words you would like to say to our audience today?
Siguro, um, masasabi ko lang, thank you very much for having us here. It's very interesting. And I was kind of worried that I won't be able to join. I was telling Joy because my connection has been very crappy. Yun na nga, medyo crappy siya since yesterday. But thank God that, we were able to go through this. So there really is no closing remark, or there really is no, para, Miss Universe worthy type of, wrap up and everything. Di ba? Parang walang ganun klaseng ano. Ang masasabi ko lang that whoever's listening in right now, please understand that you can and you will survive, and you have someone that would always be there to listen to you if you need someone to talk to. Yun lang po. So thank
Wow.
you very much for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Sir Dennis. It's an honor for us as well. And of course, Peter.
All right, thank you, Clea. And of course, I would like to thank Joy, no, na nasa background for inviting me. Sabi ko nga sa kanya when I heard that, yung message niya ako that I was being invited, sabi ko, I'm like an honored student. I'm like an honor student for joining this episode. But yeah, so sobrang broad nung naging topic natin, and I'm very thankful to be part of this episode, no. And with that, siguro something that I can let everyone know is during this time, you have to make sure that our top priority is our overall wellness.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So remember to find ways to address whatever needs you have and take care of yourself. That's the
Correct.
most important thing. Um, before we end, I just want to say, Sir Dennis and Peter, it's been an honor and a wonderful discussion for all of us here at Flourish 101. We appreciate and are very grateful for the insights and expertise that you've shared to us and to people who are viewing. And to those who are watching, we're very grateful also for all of you for being part of this session. And for those who continue to watch us, we're very happy that you've been with us since a few episodes back. And I guess for the future episodes, we'll still be discussing topics that relate to the eight dimensions of wellness. And I hope that you can tune in next time to really discuss and go take a deep dive into these topics so that we can take care of ourselves. Because as Peter said, that's the most important thing that we are going to be that we need to be doing right now. And right now, it's about survival and taking care of our health. Next week, in 2 weeks, it's going to be intellectual wellness. In terms of the date, we will be announcing the date on our social media, unless it appears somewhere. Um, yes, intellectual wellness with Ruben J. Alvarez. So we'll just be posting when that's going to be. But we hope to see you once again. And for everyone who's watching, thank you for being with us. And to both Sir Dennis and Peter, thank you. And thank you to Baby Cat. Hi, Baby Cat. Hello. And also, yung thought ko when Sir Dennis talked about Beauty Queen, famous words of one of our advocates for love yourself. There's all my silver lining pa din. Palaging may silver lining. So even amidst this storm, there is a silver lining.
Tama.
So I just want to tell everyone, thank you for watching this with us. Intellectual Wellness will be on August 19. So we hope to see you once again. Thank you for watching, for staying with us for this hour and a half. And we hope that all of you be well. We wish that for all of you. And may we still flourish despite this pandemic. And again, we flourish by trying every day. That's the motto of Flourish Circle. Thank you, and we'll see you again on August 19th. Bye, guys.
Thank you very much.